Oh, we have got an audience, haven't we? But let's take our masks off. Welcome to the afterlife. Yes, this is incredibly interesting. But on this channel normally we review weapons and armor. So we shall do so also for the special Halloween video. But who could we talk about? Werewolves, witches, zombies, or vampires? Gabriel from Castlevania, Lords of Shadows. Well, here's an interesting character to review, isn't it? And I think quite fitting for our Halloween special video. Well, you see, Gabriel is supposed to be an 11th century knight, but he's a member of a very special order, and what they do basically in this order is they fight vampires, werewolves, well, you name it, any kind of monsters, and specifically a order called the Lords of Shadows. So, considering the fact that he's supposed to be a knight, let's review his weapons and armor. Do they make sense from a medieval perspective? Okay, starting with the armor. But does he actually wear armor? Well, yes. He's wearing a sort of cuirass, isn't it? Although, for the 11th century, it's kind of strange he's got a plate cuirass, but it's okay, it's a fantasy setting. Now, it would make a lot more sense if he wore actual mail, but he's wearing plate. The thing is, though, that he's only wearing plate on his torso. Then he has got his legs protected and his left arm. His right arm has got a little bit of protection. Sometimes he has, sometimes he hasn't. It depends on what concept art you're talking about. But definitely the most armored side is the left side, which makes sense, because that was the same. I mean, in northern Italian armor, you did have asymmetrical pauldrons, and the most armored part would always be the left side, because it's your line of defense when you fight. Given picking up stuff with this is not easy, but I'm sure it would be, you know, sort of nice. It depends if they're made of steel. The fact that most of his protection is on the torso, though, I think it makes sense. Well, I'm going to give a spoiler now, so if you don't want to, just skip the next 30 seconds, but I'm going to give a spoiler now. But as you know, he will eventually become Count Dracula. So, considering the fact that he will be the most powerful vampire, well, what's any vampire's weak point? The heart. So, the fact that he's wearing plate, absolutely. And as a matter of fact, it might actually make sense that he's not wearing any helmet, that he's only wearing the torso, because as a supernatural undead, it would make sense. So, big thumbs up for the choice of the cuirass and the skull. Yeah, very bleak. So what about the weapon? Absolutely makes no sense, but would it work? I suppose so. I mean, he's got this, of course, to penetrate vampires and kill them, so I suppose if vampires were real, then yes, it could make sense that he's always carrying this, but on the other hand, you do want to utilize this part, and yes, well, if the sign of the cross works against the undead in this setting, then be my guest, absolutely use it. But what about the chain? Weren't the chains actually used for combat in medieval times? Well, here's the thing. The concept of the flail, we are not really sure. It's most likely a very exotic weapon also for medieval people. And if it ever existed, it probably was two-handed. So could you actually use this? Well, of course, hoping to penetrate someone just by throwing this? Absolutely not, unless there is magic involved. If there is magic involved, then I suppose you can do anything you want. What about entangling your opponent with a chain? Well, if it's a very sturdy chain, it could make sense, and you're very good at it, but it would still be much better to have a spear, or a sword for that matter, or even a mace actually. I think it would be better to have anything. But yeah, not particularly big fan of the chain part. But what about this? Well, if it's sturdy enough, it could be similar to a sort of warhammer in between mace, warhammer, yeah. So absolutely, yeah, it could make sense. I mean, at the end of the day, it's got a very pointy tip, and I think it could be used for quite effectively against armored opponents. And of course, he's fighting supernatural people, supernatural creatures, monsters, and probably their skin is quite tough. So it could make sense that he's using this kind of weapon, in my humble opinion. Okay, short video, but just wanted to share with you this opinion. I also want to know what you think about this cosplay. It was made by my friend Alessio, who is also the same person who made my Malthael full armor set. If you liked his work, please click in the description below, because there will be a link to his Facebook page to see the rest of his work. But let me know, do you like Gabriel? Do you like Castlevania? And what is your favorite Castlevania in the whole series? Let me know in the description below.
I love you. I hate you. You don't say.